So this is the third lesson on making the most of the money God entrusts to us. Now, as we said, the first lesson we talked about was having a why. Why do I need to have a plan? And then we talked about people dealing with people problems with money, including ourselves. And now we're going to talk about the process. Now, the process is what we're going to launch into for the Skype phone calls that we're going to be having after this session is over. We're going to give you an overview of it today, but this is what we're actually going to be working on. We're going to work on your actual budget. Now, I want to be very careful to say, and John knows that I'm saying this, be very careful to say this, and that is, I am not an employee of the mission office, and we will be dealing with your actual financial income and expenses and all that kind of stuff, but I don't report any of that to the mission office, so the mission office won't have, one part doesn't go to the other. But the goal is for you to have a budget in place at the end of the third phone call, for you to have a budget in place that is working, that reaches your end goals, everything that's established for you, and I'll help you walk you through that process. And that's some of the forms that you see at your table that we'll be using, and I'll explain that a little bit later. Now, all of us are at varying stages of a budgeting process. All of us are. For some of you, this will be so basic because you're way down the road on this kind of stuff, and I understand that. But maybe some things in this lesson will help you reinforce what you're doing. But we're going to be dealing with some of the basics to get started with the budget. Wise money management begins by stopping the bleeding. Wise money management begins by stopping the bleeding. We've got to stop the debt and the interest that we're paying on debt. Wise money management does not include more debt. That's not going to be the answer to this. You will not be able to pay off debt if you keep adding debt. And remember, that's the credit card company's way to get rid of debt, is to do refinance. Let's just refinance all of this. Refinancing is not the way to go. And we'll talk about the way to go. We have talked about what debt is costing you financially and relationally and spiritually. So now we want to talk about wise money management because it gets you out of debt and keeps you out of debt. That's the goal. You can create and maintain a budget by utilizing two budgeting principles. The first principle in budgeting is strategy. We've got to come up with a strategy. A budgeting strategy is your lifelong monetary goals, and there's 7 steps to a good strategy. So one thing we'll deal with, and I've said this a lot because in other classes they've missed this, and I had to bring them up to speed on this, is we are going to talk about your strategy. What are your end goals? Where do you want to be later in life? Where do you want to be? And then we work everything based on that, okay? So to have a good strategy, you take 7 steps to have a good strategy. Step number 1 is save a $1,000 emergency fund. Now, these are known as Dave Ramsey's baby steps. If you've been through FPU, these are the baby steps. And the first step is a $1,000 emergency fund. This may sound counterproductive. Because I am in debt, I have bills I cannot pay, why start with savings? And here's why you need to start with a $1,000 emergency fund. B, the fact is, emergencies are a way of life. We talked about that with that victim mentality. The truth is, you are always going to face financial issues, no matter how well you budget. The only difference is this. People who have a strategy, when an emergency comes, can cover it. I don't know how many times I have said, I don't want to buy this. I hate having to buy this. I have to buy this, and I just don't want to spend the money on it, but I have to. But the issue is not, I don't have the money for this. The issue is, I don't want to take it out of savings to pay for what I've got to pay. But if your biggest crisis is, I hate taking this money out of savings, that's a sure better crisis than I can't get to work because I can't get my car repaired. There's a huge difference than that. Bottom line is, emergencies are a way of life. Emergencies will never go away. If you do not have a fund to cover emergencies, your plan to eliminate debt and budget your money will never work. Because emergencies don't stop just because you started a budget. They don't stop. So you've got to have that $1,000 so that when an emergency comes, it doesn't blow your budget. You've got that $1,000. That's why you save it first. An emergency will always occur and wreck your financial plan. Think of an emergency fund as a safety net. With a safety net, you can safely budget your money knowing if an emergency does come, you will land safely and get back up and keep going. Saving first has these benefits, and that's why Dave Ramsey put this plan together. It allows you to get in your mindset of being in control of your money. So you need a mindset of, I am in control of my money. But if you don't have that emergency fund and a crisis comes, you're not in control. We worked on this budget. We budgeted every penny. We got everything down just like we want, and here this comes. And when that happens, you give up. But if you have that emergency fund, you are still in control. It forces you to make a change because you haven't been saving before. Saving money can actually become addicting once you see you can do it. Once you see you can reach your goals, it becomes addicting that one of the first things you budget is the money that's going to go into savings because we want to buy a house. We want to be able to pay cash for a car. We want to send our kids to college. Whatever it is, it becomes exciting, so it becomes addicting to save. No one knows when a financial storm will come our way, but we know rainy days do come to everyone. When you have an emergency fund, you won't have to go deeper into debt when the storm hits. It's inevitable, so that's why we start with that. C, $1,000 is the beginner emergency fund. This is just getting you started. The beginner emergency fund will help you to stay focused on paying off your debt in step 2. If you don't have an emergency fund, when we get to step 2, you're going to get thrown off track. The beginner fund will help you be motivated to increase your emergency fund in step 3. In step 3, we want to get to that 3 to 6 months. And once you've saved $1,000, you said, well, we saved $1,000. We can do this. And the beginner fund will help you create and maintain a budget. We're going to be able to stay on this budget. That's why it's so important. So if you have nothing right now, you have no plan whatsoever, and you have debt, then your first step is let's get a $1,000 emergency fund. So that means that once you create that budget, it's as low as it possibly can be because you're putting as much as you can in that emergency fund to save that. That's step 1. Step 2 is to pay off your debt. Once you have that emergency fund to handle those emergencies that come in, now we're going to pay off the debt. A, get current on all your bills. To get out of debt, the first thing is to get current on all your bills. You may need to cut expenses to do this. You may have to sell some things. It's worth it to have to sell some things that you have to get current on your bills. Getting current is critical to your financial strategic plan. And again, when we have the calls, if this is your case, I can help you do some of those things. B, once you are current, pay off the debt with a debt snowball. This is, again, something that Dave Ramsey has coined, the debt snowball. Here's how to use a debt snowball. First, list all your debts from lowest to highest. If you're going to get rid of your debts, you've got to create something that shows your lowest debt to your highest debt. Make minimum payments in all debts except for the smallest debt, and pay as much as your budget allows on the smallest debt, regardless of the amount of interest you pay on the debts. Now, some of you have different amount of debts on different cards or different ways you have that debt. And you say, well, I'm paying 16% interest on this, and I'm paying 5% on this. I should pay on the 16% interest. No, you pay on the smallest debt first, and we'll tell you why. So don't base it on the amount of interest you're paying. Base it on the amount of the debt. Once the smallest debt is paid off, add what you are paying on it to the next smallest debt. So now here's an example. We'll have this on the screen for you. Here's an example of how that works. Let's just pretend that these are the debts you have. You owe $2,500 to a Visa card, and you're paying $63 a month. You have a $500 penny card that you're paying $50 a month, a $10,000 student loan that you're paying $96 a month, and a $7,000 car loan at $135 a month. So the first thing you do is you take that list and you list them smallest to largest. So now we've changed this to show that our smallest debt was the pennies card, so that's listed first, and then the Visa card was second. So now you've listed them in the order that you're going to pay them off. And then each month determine how much money you have to pay off debt. And let's just pretend that you have $500 a month available to pay off debt. So how am I going to do this? What you do is you make the minimum monthly payment on the car loan, the student loan, and the Visa card. You make the minimum payments on that, and you put as much money as you can on the pennies credit card. All right? So what you've done was you took the $63 from the Visa card, the $135 from the car loan, and the $96 from the student loan. That comes up to $294. So you subtract $294 from $500, and you end up with $204. which means you now pay $204 on the pennies card. So do you see how fast you're going to pay off that pennies card? That's the whole goal, is to get something paid off quickly, because you're going to pay $204 on it. Now, once the pennies card is paid off, pay the minimum on the car loan. So now the pennies is gone. So now you can make the minimum on the car loan and the student loan and put all available money on the Visa card. And when the Visa card is paid off, then you do the same thing with each one. So you start with the smallest, you go from smallest, pay that one off, the next one, and that gives you that confidence to be able to do that. See, why does the snowball plan work? The plan works because it's all about behavior modification, not math. Remember when we said that budgeting is 80% behavior and 20% knowledge? If you have credit card debt, you have a behavior problem that needs to be corrected. And so we need to get some small victories in right away. And so if we can get that pennies card paid off in 2.5 months, you go, woohoo! You know, I had 4 debts, now I just have 3 debts. Pennies is gone, I'll never owe pennies again. And then you pay that next one off, the Visa card bill. Okay, I'm done with my credit cards now. I've got to get that car paid off. And now I got to work on my student loan, and I'm going to do everything I can to get that student loan paid off, regardless of what the Democratic presidential contenders say they're going to do. People are already planning, like those student loans are going to be paid off. So people who were paying more on their student loans are now paying minimum on their student loans because I think the Democrats are going to take care of it. What are they doing to themselves? Putting themselves in a world of hurt is what they're doing, okay? So it works because it's helping you to change your behavior. Choosing to pay a little extra on all your debts or paying on a high debt amount with a high interest rate does not give you any short-term motivational victories. And you say, well, I'm going to pay my student loan off first because this is the most, I'm going to pay it off. Well, that will take forever to pay off, and you won't have any short-term victories, and you won't get excited about it. It won't change your behavior. We're after behavior change. Without short-term victories, you will not stay motivated and will give up because it does not feel like anything good is happening. If you have 5 debts, you pay off 1, you only have 4 debts left, and that motivates you to continue the debt snowball. That's why it works. So we get the $1,000 emergency fund, we go on the debt snowball to get our debt paid off, and then step 3 is to increase your beginner emergency fund to a fully funded 3 to 6 month emergency fund. Now, this is not your full budget. This is the amount of budget you need to survive. For instance, in your budget, you can have rent, you can have utilities, you can have insurance, you can have vacation, you can have clothes. Well, when you're saving 3 to 6 months, you don't need to budget for that clothes and for the vacation, because if you have an emergency, you're not going to be funding those things. So you just say, what do we have to survive? And only you can come up with that amount. What would it take for us to survive over 3 to 6 months? Could that happen to a missionary that you could lose support? Sure. Anything can happen to anybody. And we have to just say, well, if I was sick for a month, my churches would probably still support me. Yeah, they probably will. But you know, other things can happen. And we've seen a lot of those things happen to missionaries, and they were very happy that they had somebody to fall back on to cover those times. So you come up with what 3 to 6 months is. Step 4 is invest 15% of your money in a retirement fund. Step 5 is to save for college for your children. Step 6 is to pay off your home. And step 7 is to build wealth and give generously. I rarely have to deal with people on steps 4, 5, 6, and 7. That's just a process. Once you get in those steps, you're in really good shape. So that's why we spend all of our time on steps 1, 2, and a little bit in step number 3. First, let's get that emergency fund going. Let's pay off debt. Let's have that a way of life. And then these other steps fall into place. But what they give you is your strategy. My strategy is I'm going to save $1,000. Then I'm going to get all my debt paid off. Then I'm going to have 36 months in the bank. So now it's time for me to say, I need to be saving for retirement. Okay, I'm funding my retirement. Now I need to think about my college for my kids. Okay, I got college taken care of. Now let's see if we can pay that home loan off. And then you build that wealth after that. But you have a strategy of what you're going to do. Number 2, the second principle is to create and maintain a budget. And a budget is a lifelong monetary plan. You need a strategy first. I'm telling you, without a strategy, you won't do step 2 because there's no goals that you have set for you. But once you do that, you get a budget. People resist budgeting. Everybody resists budgeting. You are not alone. I don't know how many people I talk to. They say, well, I don't have a budget, but we just have it in our minds that we're spending this much and this much and this much. I can guarantee you, you're not reaching your end goals. That's why end goals are so important. You just say, well, I don't really budget, but I just kind of know where we are. Really? How much will you have in retirement when you're 62? How much money are you going to give your kids when they leave home for college? Okay, can you answer those questions for me? Well, no, then you don't have a budget, because budgeting covers all those things. Fact, a budget is the foundation that will take care of a person's financial problems and goals. That is what works. People ask for all kinds of help on debt and all that kind of stuff, but I don't want to create a budget. But the fact is, if you have any end goals in your life, if you have any idea of I want to do these things, it's not going to work without a budget. B, you start by determining your income expenses. Number one, what is your real income? And most of the people I work with cannot tell me what their income is. They really don't have a handle on their income, and they have all kinds of reasons for that. Well, I'm fluctuating, I'm in sales and all that kind of stuff. No, you have an income. And if we'll do income averaging, but we have to do something to say, this is how much money that comes in. You need to know that. So you write down your regular total and monthly income and any regular money that you receive during the year, like a Christmas bonus. Some people, they always get a Christmas bonus. So you write down what comes in every month, and then I get a bonus at the end of the company year or Christmas or you get a tax refund or whatever. Now, as a missionary, your monthly income is going to vary from month to month. You will not get the same check every month because some church misses and then they send 2 months worth, some misses and they don't make it up. Your budget is going to vary from month to month. You will need to use a range of income from low to high and budget accordingly. Once you get established, you can say, okay, this is a low month, this is a high month, and you got a budget for low and high months. Once you establish the expense side of your budget, you'll put any extra ministry money in your reserve fund and draw money from that reserve fund on low months. If you do not have any money in the reserve fund for low months, you need to cut your budget or raise more support, bottom line, okay? You are allowed to have a reserve fund with BBFI. You can have a reserve fund for ministry funds. If you have fluctuating income, and bottom line is, since you're going to have fluctuating income, then you say, on average, this much money comes in. And on months that more money comes in from ministry, you put it in your reserve fund. And then you take it out of your reserve fund on a low month. And that way you can budget something and just stay consistent. Use your reserve fund to do that. And you do the same thing in your personal account. In my personal account, I call it a holding fund. My income fluctuates. And because my income fluctuates, what I do is I have an established budget that we can live on. When more money for that month comes in than my established budget, that goes into the holding fund. And when the months are low and I don't get that much money per month, I take it out of my holding fund and I put it into the budget, okay? So it's very easy to handle fluctuating income. And again, we'll work you through this process when we do the phone calls because every one of you have fluctuating income. But that way, you don't have to have those emergency months. Because if you do not have a reserve fund in your ministry fund and you have obligated yourself to these ministry expenses, and that month that doesn't come in, what is your plan? And for some missionaries, it's send out a letter saying, I got to have $1,000 because the rent on the building we're renting all of a sudden went up and I don't have any money to cover it. And you can do that once in a while, but if you're the missionary that does it on a regular basis, do you think you stand out in pastors' minds as always being in crisis mode? Okay. Some of you weren't around to know Jerry Falwell. Okay. Jerry Falwell was constantly raising money. And Jerry Falwell himself said about himself, I know what they're going to put on my tombstone. They're going to put on my tombstone, and the beggar died. What kind of missionary do you want to be? Do you want to be that missionary that has the pleas for things like sending kids to camp and needing a car and you're building a building? Or do you want to be that ministry that every time any little thing comes up, you're sending a letter out to everybody saying, I need this much money extra this month? That does get old to pastors. So use a reserve fund for the ministry. Use a holding fund for your personal account So that in your personal account, when things are less coming in your personal account, you have a way to cover it and you just keep on trucking. So that you don't have to come off the mission field early to raise more money. Okay? There are a lot of missionaries that come off the field every 18 to 24 months to raise more money. And pastors say, why are you here again? Well, I got to raise more money. Weren't you here 2 years ago? You know, I've got a lot of missionaries that don't come off every 2 years to raise money. You get known. And you don't want to be known as that missionary that's living in constant financial crisis. Next, determine what your monthly bills really are. This determines truth from falsely founded hope. And a lot of people live with falsely founded hope because they don't really know what their expenses are. Everything could look fine from a distance, but a close examination reveals foundational problems. Because you say, overall, I think we're doing fine. But when that 6-month car bill insurance comes in, you don't have the money for that 6-month, insurance bill comes in. If your car insurance renews every 6 months. You've got to have things ready for that. Go through 2 or 3 months of financial statements. Go through your bank statements, your credit card statements, your cash withdrawals, anything that has to do with money, go through that and come up with what is that average month. We're going to go high to low, but come up with what that average month is. Write down actual expenses and categories, and we'll talk about categories a little bit more lately. Write down any annual expenses that may not have shown up in the 3-month review, like car registration, property tax, annual fees or subscriptions, some insurance policies. Christmas comes up once a year. A lot of people don't budget anything for Christmas, and then they love people so much they completely blow their budget on Christmas. If you're going to spend money at Christmas, then you budget money for Christmas. So when Christmas comes, you've got the money to pay for it. So you write down, you go through your bank statements and all that, and let's just say your bank statements were April, May, and June. Well, no Christmas bills are in that, but you are going to have Christmas, so we got to save for that. Subtract your income from your expenses to get a clear picture of your financial situation. And then F, get over the shock about your financial situation. Because most people that I deal with, you know, they're somehow just making it, but when you put it on paper, it is just absolutely shocking to them. If your financial situation is bad, it's not an excuse to skip a budget. It's even saying more, I need a budget. If your financial situation is good, praise the Lord, but still says, I want to put a budget together because I want to make sure I reach my end goals. Create a budget using the actual income and expenses. The actual income and expenses. Once we get that there, and which we'll work on in our phone calls, then we're going to create an actual budget that says this much is going here and going there. Now, if you have more outgo than income, start a budget by working on the 4 walls. I'm going to show you a video now done by Chris Hogan. He's part of Dave Ramsey's organization. Can you hold just a second?
I see people.
This is by Chris Hogan of Financial Peace University, and he put this together. This is for people who are in debt, cannot pay all their debts, and they say, I have more bills to pay than I have money coming in. And these 4 walls tells you, this is what I have to concentrate on. Now, I want to be very clear to you to say this. If you are doing the 4 walls, you are getting a very bad credit card rating. Very bad, because you're not going to be paying some bills. But if you're in deep financial trouble and you say, what do I do when I can't pay all my bills? This video will help you do that. So let's play that.
I see people in my office all the time whose financial life looks like one big knot. It is such a mess they don't know where to begin to get it untangled. Once your finances are in a knot, you start making bad decisions, like being current on Visa but behind on your house payment. That's like building a house without a roof. When you're in the middle of a money crisis, it's hard to determine who to pay. It can be overwhelming. In this lesson, I'm going to cover what I call the 4 walls. The 4 walls will help you prioritize your money while making sure you have the necessities you need. And when I talk about the 4 walls, I'm referring to food, shelter, including utilities, rent or mortgage, transportation, and clothing. If you only have so much money coming in and something can't be paid, what do you need to pay first? By thinking through the 4 walls, you can know you have to take care of your family first. Your creditors don't care about your family. They just want to get paid. You cannot pay Visa if it means you won't have enough money to feed your family or pay the electric bill. Now, not paying Visa will ding your credit report for a while. But guess what? Taking care of your four walls will allow you the opportunity to buy back some time so you can get back in control. Part of correctly using the four walls means you have the strength to say no to stuff you don't need. You can live without Starbucks, but you need a place to live. If your finances are tangled up in a knot, you need a plan for systematically untying the knot, putting your life back in priority order. You can't start to untie anything by diving into the middle. You have to find an end. Smoothing out your situation is going to take some patience. The first priority is to make sure that you have food on the table. Not eating out every night or buying the best food you can find at the store. I'm talking about plain, basic food at home. You want to make sure that you're able to pay your first and second mortgage if you have one, or that you're able to pay your rent. Paying your mortgage or rent first will give you some slack in the rope to work on the next step in the knot. Next, you need to make sure that you're able to take care of your utilities. That's electric, gas, all the things that are necessary for your home or apartment to function. Cable TV is probably a luxury that you don't need. You do need to have clothes on your back, but not high-end name brands, just basic clothes. And then the last is transportation. Maybe you need to consider selling a car, carpooling, or taking public transportation, whatever it takes to get you where you need to go. You may even need to consider selling that high-end SUV to help clean up your mess. If you have a car, make sure it's well maintained so that it can get you to and from work. The best way to be sure that you can cover your four walls is to have a written game plan. That's right, I'm talking about a budget. A budget gives you control over where your money goes. We tell people to spend every dollar that comes in each month on paper on purpose before the month begins. Now, even if you can't cover all your expenses in a given month, you can still decide who to pay and what to pay. This puts you in control of your money instead of your creditors. So let's take a look at an example of how to untangle your finances using the four walls. In this example, this family brings in a monthly income of $3,750 after taxes. The family's typical expenses look a lot like this. They have credit cards from Visa, Home Depot, and Discover. Now, the minimum payments on those credit cards total $555. They also spend $83 per month on gym memberships and a subscription to Xbox Live. The mortgage is $1,200 a month, and they spend an average of $600 a month on groceries and $300 on clothing. Their utilities total $640, and their internet costs them $60 a month. They also subscribe to a mid-level cable TV package that costs $80 per month. They have 2 cars with payments that total $925 and spend $700 a month on gas and insurance. They spend $400 per month eating out, take dance lessons for $75 per month, and spend $140 on their cell phone bill. This family is spending over $1,800 more per month than they bring in. This is a mess. Let's apply our 4-wall principles to see if we can start working on their knot so they can start moving in the right direction. Their monthly take-home pay stays the same at $3,750, but instead of going into more debt this month, we're going to choose to protect the needs of the family by making some tough choices. Keeping the mortgage current and the lights on is our top priority, so we're going to choose to make those payments first. Next, we're going to set aside around $600 for food. Now, of course, if you can find a way to get through the month on less than that, that's even better. This family decided to get rid of one of the cars to reduce the car payment, gas, and insurance expense to $975, saving themselves $650. Now, that was a tough choice for them, but it's going to make a huge difference in their cash flow. They also decided to make their current clothes last a bit longer, and they cut their monthly clothing budget to $100. They decided to keep their cell phones, but they do their exercise around the neighborhood instead of going to the gym. They eat at home instead of going out. They also got into the habit of reading books from the library instead of watching TV. Now, after they covered their 4-wall items, they have $285 that can be applied to their unsecured credit card debt. This family is headed in the right direction, but they still have some work to do. They have a plan and are taking action to improve their situation. Now, to recap, the 4 walls are food, shelter, transportation, and clothing. These are the areas that you absolutely must take care of each month to avoid getting your finances in a knot. Put you and your family first. Be the boss of your budget and don't allow creditors to set your priorities.
And secured and unsecured debt. Secured debt means you can lose something if you don't pay that debt. A secured debt is like on your house. You don't pay your house payment, you lose your house. You don't make your car payment, you lose your car. Unsecured debt is things like pennies and credit cards, Visa and MasterCard and all those kind of things. When you are in this kind of trouble, what you're doing is not letting the unsecured debt people mess with you. You need to stay in control of your finances. Now, it is going to mess up your credit score big time, but we're talking about people who cannot do this. It's not that they can't make any more they can make cutbacks and they chose not to. We're not talking about that. But you can't pay all of your bills. Don't let people with unsecured debt come after you. The people who call you on unsecured debt, like the credit card people, they get paid if you pay them something. So they will tell you whatever they have to tell you to get you to pay something, because they get paid when you pay something, and that's the only way they get paid. And so the people on those phone calls are trained on how to guilt you in, to motivate you any way they can motivate you to get you to pay your unsecured debt. You're not going to let them control your life if the four walls are at stake. You take care of your four walls, you take the hit on your credit score, you have to build that back up later. But if a credit card company is coming after you, there's nothing they can do to like lose your house or lose your car. There's nothing they can do no matter what they say on the phone. So we're going to delay that. But as a Christian, we made that debt, we're going to pay it, right? As a Christian, if we make a debt, we pay our debts. But don't let them keep food off of your table. Don't let them cause you to lose your house. Don't allow them to get your gas turned off. Does that make sense? Know the difference in secured and unsecured, and we're only talking about not paying debt on unsecured. But that'll give you an idea of what to do if you're in deep, deep financial problems. Now, a good place to create a budget, if you don't know about it, is a place called everydollar.com. Now, everydollar.com is a free place to do your budget online. I just want to warn you, I have checked every single free budget site, and there's a lot of them out there, and they will all try to sell you something. They will try to get you to upgrade, and they will try to sell you books and plans. So any free site that you go to are going to send you ads, okay? But if you need a free site to do a budget, you can do it on everydollar.com. Now, for some of you, this lesson was absolutely overwhelming. It was too much information to handle. But that's okay that if this overwhelmed you, because you have your notes and we have the videos. Now, what we've done is we filmed this class. The mission office has filmed this class. It's going to go on the website. So you'll be able to view these lessons over again. So you'll have the notes. You'll be able to view these lessons over again. And you can access my website. Now, I'm going to pass out in a minute. This is our advertisement for our missionary communication workshop, but it has our website on it. So I want you to see that. And on our website, we offer you a lot of information as well. I'll also give you a business card that has my phone number on it and my email address on it, so you can contact me with that. So I'm always happy to answer any questions that you might have. You will need to be completely motivated to get a budget going, to create and maintain a budget for the phone calls that we're going to have. Now, I'm going to pass out a sign-up sheet in just a minute. It's going to put your name on it and your contact information on it. And we're going to have these 3 phone calls. I like to do them on Skype or FaceTime or whatever access you have to that. And we will help you work on a budget. But if you're not completely motivated, you're going to kind of fight this a little bit. And I'll know that you're fighting it, and so I'll spend my time giving you a bigger why. That's what I'll do. Because I'm telling you, budgeting is financial freedom. And when you know that, then you say, okay, I want to do this because I want to have that financial freedom. When my wife and I spend money, we spend money guilt-free. If we go out to dinner, if we go on vacation, if we do anything, it's guilt-free because we know the money is there. We know there's taking care of everything, and we want the same thing for you. You'll need to know your why. We're going to go over those why sheets that we talked about. Without a clear why, you will consciously or unconsciously fight the budgeting process. And I want to make sure that you have that clear why. Now, when we have these phone calls, you will always have an assignment to do before the meeting happens. And so once you get this sign-up sheet, I'm going to start calling you. I'll have to work with a couple going to Mongolia, but I will call you the week of July 29th. Whatever phone numbers you give me, I'm going to call you the week of July 29th. It'll just be a phone call to set up the FaceTime or the Skype. And I will tell you what your assignment is for that, okay? We'll have a date. We'll have a sign-up time. I will only meet with you if the assignment is done. The day before the phone call, the day before the Skype or the FaceTime, you need to make sure you've sent me everything I've requested. If you don't send me that, I will send you an email saying, where's your stuff? If you don't send me your stuff, we cancel that. Now, John was in here and he told you that this is now mandatory for all missionaries because we love you. Okay, we care about you. This is mandatory for you to do. I have to sign off on you that you have completed this. And so take this as this is something I have to do. And I'm hoping once we get involved in it, it becomes something you want to do and you think it's going to be good for you to do. But if that is not done, then we cancel that. And like I said, I do not work for the mission office. The mission office does not get any copies of your budget, any copies of your finances whatsoever. But the mission office does get whether we have the phone call or not. And if I try to get a hold of you and it's not working out, then I have to call the mission office, and somebody from the mission office will call you and say, you need to get on this. I know you are busy. I get it. I get that you're busy. This is still worth it. It's still worth it. It's like the guy that was out raking leaves off of his lawn, and he was smoking, and he threw a cigarette down and didn't notice that it caught the leaves on fire. And he saw the leaves were on fire, and the pile was up next to the house. And so he got a hose, and he started trying to put out the fire that the leaves had caused. It was starting to burn his wood house. And he said the hardest decision he had to make was to put the hose down and go call the fire department. I was a fireman at one time. And that's what he said. My hardest decision was to put down the hose and call the fire department. This is a hard decision. You're busy, but it's going to be worth it in the long run for you to be able to do this. So you'll always have an assignment. The assignment has to be done, and both of you have to be on the phone call. And I think you've seen why as we've gone through this. You both spend money, so you both have to be a part of the budgeting process. So both of you have to be on the phone call. So to get the process started, we're going to pass the sheet around. After you pass the sheet around and have the information, I'll give you a call on July 29th, and then we will get started. When we do get started, some of the first forms you're going to fill out are the forms that I gave you. This gives you kind of a heads up on that. I'll be emailing things to you. That's something I'll email to you. One is a financial snapshot. That gives us an idea of where you are right now. The other is a cash flow. We can start figuring out what your cash flow is, so you have that in advance to get working on that. I'll go ahead and completely fill out your why that you have, your why, and also the evaluation. If you can fill all those things out, you will be ahead of the game. So at this time, we're going to see if anybody has any questions that we can answer for you. Kenna has a microphone that she'll give you. But what questions do you have about anything that we have covered today, all the way back to the first lesson, second lesson, third lesson? What questions do you guys have about what we've talked about? Okay, you got it. Our phone calls are going to be so easy because I'll say, well, you said you got that. You didn't have any questions about that. Okay, all right, let's pray. We'll be done for today. Father in heaven, thank you for your love and goodness to us, and I thank you that in your word you are very clear about what you expect from us. And I pray that everyone in here will make sure that they are that manager, not the person in denial, they're not apathetic, they're not a procrastinator, they're not a victim. They're that manager that's properly taking care of the money that you have entrusted to them. And I pray that as a result of these classes we've had today and the phone calls that we're going to have to follow, that every one of them in here will put a plan together that helps them to reach the end goals that they have all through life, and they'll honor you with every decision they make. In Jesus' name, amen.